Marketing is hard. But I'll tell you a little secret. It doesn't have to be. Let me point something out. You're listening to a podcast right now, and it's great. You love the host. You seek it out and download it. You listen to it while driving, working out, cooking, even going to the bathroom. Podcasts are a pretty close companion. And this is a podcast ad. Did I get your attention? You can reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Libsyn Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a pre-produced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience in their favorite podcasts with Libsyn Ads. Go to libsynads.com, that's Libsyn, ads.com today.
Back in the 80s, Quentin Tarantino and Roger Avary were budding filmmakers working together at a hip Los Angeles video store called Video Archives.
We didn't have a cash register for 4 years.
Yeah.
Now, they're reuniting to watch the original tapes from the Video Archives collection. Films like Dark Star, Moonraker, and many more. The Video Archives podcast is out now. Find us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Dearest fantasy readers, welcome to the Dear Fantasy Reader podcast, where two best friends, Hannah and Karen, travel through the pages of the Empyrean series, exploring characters, scenes, theories, foreshadowing, and more.
Content warning and spoiler alert. This means everything Empyrean series to this date and any content Rebecca Yarros has given us. Due to the nature of these books, this podcast is rated R in content and in language.
We have dropped everything today in the midst of a literal hurricane, which you could probably hear outside right now, to talk about our first thoughts on the new Onyx Storm blurb that Rebecca just dropped today.
Oh my gosh.
I was laying in bed when I saw it, and when I tell you I practically levitated out and started blowing up Karen's phone.
True. I was so swamped at work today, so I was not checking my phone. And then when I finally did, I was like, wow, lots of messages from Hannah, but oh my gosh, this is huge. And I literally rushed home and jumped into working on this outline with Hannah because fresh content.
So fresh. I'm so excited to jump into all of this because I've had thoughts swirling all day long, and we're going to get into it. Drum roll, Dragon Riders, as we officially have the newest addition to our archives, the Onyx Storm blurb.
Wow. After nearly 18 months at Basgiath War College, Violet Sorrengail knows there is no more time for lessons. No more time for uncertainty, because the battle has truly begun, and with enemies closing in from outside their walls and within their ranks, it is impossible to know who to trust. Now Violet must journey beyond the failing Orician wards to seek allies from unfamiliar lands to stand with Navarre. The trip will test every bit of her wit, luck, and strength, but she will do anything to save what she loves, her dragons, her family, her home, and him. Even if it means keeping a secret so big it could destroy everything. They need an army. They need power. They need magic. And they need one thing only Violet can find: the truth. But a storm is coming, and not everyone can survive its wrath.
Oh my gosh. And it's short. It's only like 100 and some words, but boy, does it say so much. It gives us so much context, right? Where we are in this 5-book series, what's going to happen. I cannot wait to get into it. And we are going to go in line by line, because there's so much, and just try and tease it out.
Okay, so let's do the first line. After nearly 18 months at Basgiath War College, Violet Sorrengail knows there is no more time for lessons.
This line, and the one that's coming up shortly, makes me think that Violet leaves Basgiath War College. Onyx Storm may like start with them at Besgaeth with likely enough time for Violet to finally find Papa Sorrengail's research.
Huh.
But it implies she doesn't stick around for long. So either way, I think one of two things could happen. Either they're called into active service to fight at the front, and that's like where the first leave is, knowing where we left off with this war that is kind of imminent, right?
Yeah.
Which gets messy because Violet's probably not going to want to fight on Navarre's side. We'll come back to Navarre's side here shortly if it doesn't somehow play into the revolution subset of Navarre. But maybe she's still playing for the long game here, right? We still got a couple books. Or the riders on the side of the revolution don't even give Navarre a chance to call them into active service, and they leave right after this battle to go back to Orisha, while the wards, though faulty, are still up for Xaden's sake because his venin greater magic is suppressed under the wards. Either way, we know Violet is leaving. Do you have one way or the other that you lean?
Yes, I feel pretty strongly about it too, and
Ooh.
I'm open to. I don't pretend to know what's going to happen, but
all of this is theoretical, right?
Oh, for sure. I do think that the side of the rebellion, Violet, they're leaving. I think it's on their own accord. I do not think that they are going to be called to the front. I think that with the ending of Iron Flame, I just think shit hits the fan and they get out. That's
where I left off in Iron Flame, thinking they're going to get out of there. Because they only really stayed, right, because it was in order to save civilians. And Violet wasn't even going to raise the wards at Besgaeth. They were trying to do that in Orisha, so they planned to go back. The thing that makes me think that they're not is the fact that they raised these solid, strong wards at Besgaeth. They were forced to make that decision. And now that Xaden has turned, is he going to want to go back and risk those faulty wards? I think they have enough time because they're faulty, meaning the Griffins still have their magic there, which is actually probably a benefit to storytelling, right? But how long? So I could see there being an argument for them having to stay for the sake of Xaden. Or maybe Xaden stays.
Or to leave because people are too scared of what happened and they are forced out. Anyone that's venin is forced out. What if they have to leave?
So tell me what you mean by that.
So now people know venin are real. Even though the magic doesn't work in the wards, there's still so much fear associated with them, especially with the marked ones. And now a marked one is venin. What if he is driven out and just to save those in the wards? I don't know. I feel like it could be some messy situation where stuff gets thrown on him, like fault-wise.
I don't think he tells anyone else. I don't think he and Violet are going to say anything.
Nobody else saw?
Right. It will depend on who saw his eyes. And we also don't have a ton of context for how long someone's eyes stay red after they turn or after they channel. Because we know it gets more red the more that they channel or take that magic from the earth as a venin. So it will depend on what Rebecca does with how long. And I guess who noticed. For now, I'm going to lean to that's probably the big secret that we're going to talk about here coming up that she's got to keep, and that likely our core Violet, Xaden, their dragons are the ones that know. On to your point about Navarre's leadership possibly kicking venin out, I actually think we've gotten a lot of hints that Navarre's leadership is either a part of venin, led by someone who's venin. They have like a venin recruitment section, sector. Something is going on suspiciously.
Oh, yeah.
And I think actually the wards falling doesn't necessarily mean that I know that we'll get to where Jack tells us that they're free now, but he also thought they weren't going to get them back up, and they did. So now that they're back up, the venin there can't use that magic. I don't think we're actually going to find out who's venin immediately.
Right.
I think that they're still going to be within the ranks and basically.
I could see also, even though leadership, I do think there's lots involved.
Yeah.
I think that they might try to use the marked one, specifically Xaden, as some kind of scapegoat with that too.
That's really interesting. I hope that's not the case. But I think that they have the option to get out of there pretty quickly. So all of that to say, they're leaving for some given reason, which that might be one of them. On to that, the next line, because no more time for uncertainty. And we saw Violet really grappling with uncertainty. She had some progress there in Iron Flame, but now she's just at a point where she's kind of forced to make a decision. And if you think about her uncertainty with Xaden after the major reveal of his second signet, but also overarchingly, the lack of knowledge and info about Navarre that she has, not even lack, but just backwards information that she thinks that she knew for so long. Even Orisha with the rebellion's secretive assembly. Like, can she trust them and their motives? There's no time here for her to waver with Xaden or spend time questioning anything else. She has to decide where she stands now with the info that she currently has, which is actually not a ton. Did I cut out again?
No, but your lights flicker.
That's actually, so fitting for this episode.
And no more time for uncertainty. Your lights agree.
Right. I'm just trying to get this episode out to you guys. So all of that could be a nod to the truth that Violet needs, which we will get to in just a bit. Next line.
Because the battle has truly begun, and with enemies closing in from outside their walls and within their ranks, it's impossible to know who to trust.
Yeah.
This one got me.
It's pretty immediate, right? Like, we've already been told this. This line re-emphasizes what Jack has already told us at the end of Iron Flame, chapter 60, when he says, quote, "We might not be at full strength, capable of wielding greater magic under your protections, but make no mistake, we are already among you, and now we're free." Same messaging there. They're within the ranks. Now, that was under the pretense that Jack thought that the wards were done for. Of course, they got him back up. But we have a more recent reference to this. Just 9 days ago from when we filmed this episode, Rebecca dropped Xaden's point of view of Fourth Wing chapter 27, where the wards are taken down in Montserrat. Xaden thinks, quote, "which means we have enemies within the keep already." And I said it in our bonus episode deep dive of that chapter. I think that he is referring to Venin here. Now, the fact that, we know who the true enemies are, right? We might have some, griffins that are not on our side and stuff like that, but the ones that really matter are the Venin. And Rebecca would have known when she wrote that bonus chapter what she was going to drop with this blurb only 9 days later for Onyx Storm. So I really do feel like that was just another way for her to say, yes, Jack told you this at the end, but this has been the case way back in Fourth Wing. Unfortunately, this tells us that there are characters we know, some we may love, that are already Venin and will betray Violet / the Rebellion / Navarre. It will not be pretty. Like Jack says, their greater magic as Venin was suppressed under the wards, so now is when they would likely reveal themselves, or as we said, unless they choose to stay hidden as spies.
Oof.
And it makes me wonder if there is room for any of them to be Venin and on the Revolution's side. You typically become Venin when you're power hungry, right? And then it's a downhill battle against this urge for more power from there, unless, of course, you turn for love, which seems to be rare, but maybe if Naolan actually turns out to be Venin, it's not so rare after all. But if we think of any of our core characters that we're really worried about, right? That's who we really wouldn't want to be Venin.
Yeah.
We don't really have much to go off of with them being power hungry. So I really think if it does end up being one of them, it's going to blindside us. Nothing tells me if we think of any of the people that we really love, like Riddick, maybe. And he just is really good at acting and like being humorous, but why?
No.
Like, what's the reason there? Maybe it's only higher ranking people.
Nobody else would like break our
know.
hearts like that.
But then again, Brennan is so suspicious. So maybe that's our close character that turns out to backstab us for this.
Yeah.
You know? I don't know. But
yeah. That leads perfectly into the point I wanted to make about the last part of this line. It is impossible to know who to trust. And this actually reminds me of the epigraph in chapter 28 from the Book of Brennan, which begins with talking about the war games, but then goes on to say, to know how to strike, you have to understand where your enemies, your friends, are most vulnerable. No one stays friends forever, Mira. Eventually, those closest to us become our enemies in some way, even if it's through well-intentioned love or apathy, or if we live long enough to become their villains. Oh, again, this points out that anyone could become an enemy, and no one is safe, according to Brennan. Even those that are closest can become enemies in some way.
so basically, Rebecca is telling us to watch our backs and taking all of our favorite characters out in one way or another. I'm just going to say it right now. Ree would hurt me the most. I really hope Rebecca leaves her alone. But it would be just like Rebecca to know that she's made us love Ree the most and then to take her out.
Right. Ree would hurt me really bad. Sawyer would hurt me, or Jasenia.
Oh, well, we know Jasenia doesn't.
Yeah, but I'm just saying the people that would hurt me the most, too.
Imogen's really grown on me. I think she's likely not to make it to book 5, but I really, really have grown to love her. Riddick would hurt really bad.
Riddick would hurt.
I think almost as bad as Liam.
Really?
Yeah. He's not like,
I do love
quote unquote,
Riddick.
the perfect character, but he's really, we've had more time to grow to love him. So I think it's almost equating for me. We're going to get our hearts broken.
Oh my gosh. There's no way we don't. Like, we've already kind of had pieces of our heart broken in just the 2 books. I can't imagine book 5. That's when things are really going to destroy us or put us back together, but I am really leaning towards it destroying us.
No, I think she's full set on heartbreak.
Anyways, to the next line. Now Violet must journey beyond the failing Aretian wards to seek allies from unfamiliar lands to stand with Navarre.
Okay, this is the first line I squealed at. We just did our history lesson a couple episodes back about very rarely mentioned Isle Kingdoms. I'm so excited to talk about this. Okay, so the key word's unfamiliar lands, right? We know that Violet hasn't been many places, but the phrasing unfamiliar is doing a lot of work here, I think. The lands that are unfamiliar to Violet are the Isle Kingdoms because Navarre leaves them off of their map. So Violet was not taught that geography. We only got to see them in Iron Flame when Violet was in history class in Aretia. This map shows that the Isles are 5 large and 13 smaller islands that surround the continent in every direction. They could be on our Fourth Wing map, they're just not labeled, right? We also find out in Iron Flame that the unabridged history of the first 6 tome paints General Daramore as the enemy. So he led the battle in the Barrens for the side of like what would become Navarre and decimated the Barrens. It paints him as the enemy in this book, but the Isle Kingdoms as the allies. So like the good guys, essentially. Which means that before unification of Navarre, they were allies, or allies to who is the question, right?
Yeah.
But importantly, the Isle Kingdoms cut off their border for all Navarrians at the time of Navarre's unification, meaning Navarians are not allowed to travel there and haven't been able to for over 600 years. This shows us that, for one, they were really offended by something that Navarre did with unification. We can infer that it was not sharing the info for everyone else to create and raise wards, or just being upset that they're leaving innocent people out. So if Navarians are not allowed to go there, and this is where Violet is journeying to, it begs the question of how she will get in. And again, since we can infer that they did not approve of Navarre warding themselves and leaving everyone else out, maybe they are willing to hear Violet out, knowing that she and the Revolution share that disapproval.
We've mentioned Violet being part of a prophecy. What if there's others that know about this prophecy that Andarna knows of? And it's the silver hair that's going to give her away, that they will know that she is the person that they can trust.
I have that same theory, but a different perspective, different spin on it that we're going to get to. But I really love that idea that Violet's hair will actually act as symbolic to other. Okay, we're going to come back to that when we talk about the theory coming up, because I want to tease that out. Okay. So the only other mention of the Isle Kingdoms through both books is when Violet finds a collection of tomes on them in the King's Archives vault. So clearly Navarre is hiding a lot to do with the Isle Kingdoms that we will likely find out when Violet visits. But a bunch of other questions come to mind as well. I want to know if Xaden's mother is there.
I kind of forgot his mom was alive.
Yeah.
She's just not mentioned that much. I just kind of like lump her in with the other parents that are dead. Whoa.
Yeah, well, she left when Xaden was 10.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if she is there, how? Was she originally from the Isle Kingdoms? And the allegiance that was made with Fen Ryerson was some sort of agreement that he would help Tyrrendor rebel eventually as an ally with the Isle Kingdoms against Navarre. And therefore his mom went back to her home country. And that's how Xaden and Violet get to go in, even though they are Navarian.
If they had that kind of deal, maybe she's got like some position of power. And if Violet goes there to figure out how to save Xaden, maybe she meets his mom and they don't really know who each other are at first. And they're like talking or something. And then she's like, well, what are you doing here? Like, blah, blah, blah. And then she's like, I need to save Xaden Ryerson. And then maybe that's how they're able to help, because she realizes it's her son. That's just
I like where you're going with this. No, because I can picture that. I wonder if she's of some sort of royal bloodline from one of the kingdoms, because it's multiple kingdoms, right? I keep saying country, but it's seemingly multiple. It's just a collection of them. Because Fen Ryerson was essentially the heir to the Tyrrendor throne when it was a throne, which we are still learning more about. And so I wonder if it was made in some sort of allegiance between countries. That's typically done with bloodline, right? So I guess I should say that's like actually very likely. I'm really excited to meet his mom,
so
and I really hope that it's actually, because you get this idea of like when someone's left a 10-year-old kid that like they might not be a maternal or kind person, and I think that that's actually leaving out a lot of context. But there's also room for Rebecca to also play into that a bit. So, and then I'm just going to jump around a little bit, right? So the next question that I had, do we think Andarna's 7th breed is in the Isle Kingdoms?
Yeah.
You think so?
I think she's not the only one. We're going to meet more of the 7th breed, and Andarna's going to have others like her. Maybe not there, I'm not sure. I think we definitely will meet this other breed that besides just Andarna.
Oh, yeah. Well, we know that we need another 7th breed dragon to raise the Orishan wards fully. that was clearly put in there for a reason. I know that it was to force Xaden to raise the Basgiath Navarian wards. So, but I think it plays in larger than that. And I think you're right. I think we will actually get to meet them. I do think that the 7th breed might be there, but there's more. Okay, so I'm wondering, this prophecy thing that you mentioned earlier, and that I think we've just like, it's the hill I'm willing to die on. There is some prophecy. It's just a matter of what is actually a part of it, right?
Right.
I'm wondering if they left Andarna's egg, the 7th breed, knowing about this prophecy, that she and her rider would one day reunite her with her bloodline, and then they would unite against the Venin.
Reunite Andarna with her bloodline?
And then unite the Isle Kingdoms and Navarre against the Venin.
Whoa. We should write our own book. I'm just kidding.
Writing our own fanfics as we speak. But no, for real, like I didn't expect 100 and some words to make me spiral like this, but here we are.
Right.
So yeah, so I'm wondering that. And then we've also talked about a theory that there are other Empyreans around the world, that the Empyrean Council, as we know it, is specific to the Vale at Basgiath. And I keep saying 7th breed instead of Andarna's Den. So I want to clarify why. A den is a subsection of the Empyrean Council within the Vale, which is the Dragon Society at Basgiath. Technically, Andarna is the only one in her den. Even though we know there's likely more 7th breed dragons out there, she's still the only one in her den at Basgiath's Vale. Does that make sense? So this makes me wonder if they have their own Empyrean-like dragon government there, or in any other unfamiliar lands. And further, would this be made up entirely of Andarna's 7th breed ancestors, thinking that the 6 other breeds stayed in Navarre? Or if there are some of all 7 breeds there? The prophecy could still be true. But if there are more than just the 7th breed, that begs the question of, would they be dragons or ancestors of the dragons that did not agree to move to the Vale in Navarre during unification, likely because they did not agree with how Navarre was hiding under the safety for themselves and not willing to help anyone else?
Yeah, that's what I'm leaning towards.
And then that begs the question, what does that tell us about the difference in perspective that our Navarian dragons, the Empyrean, have versus other dragon councils and ancestors that never agreed with Navarre? We see this split in the Empyrean, where there's some dragons that are siding with Navarre. Their sole reasoning that we understand is to protect dragonkind. This is solely what we know about the Empyrean. Is it best for them to hide under these wards under protection and leave all of the humans and possibly other dragons to fend for themselves? Or with dragons like Terran, where we're making assumptions that they don't agree that that's the best way to protect the dragons, or it's not a moral way.
And it's not even the dragons that we know that would have made that decision.
It's their ancestors.
So, that's so interesting, because then you think of, what was that conversation like between all of those dragons 600 years ago? Mm-hmm. And then what were our dragons told about this? Do they actually know everything about this? Were they told a version of the story that's biased from their ancestors? I had never thought about anything like this. Oh my goodness.
But isn't that the fascinating thing that Rebecca's trying to point out? We get to this here shortly, but Rebecca was a history major. And so entering this, it's got a lot of romance. It's got a lot of fantasy. That's why we love these books, but it's also got such a cool and realistic level of what happens when you burn or manipulate history.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like that Scribes things. They say, it only takes one generation to change it. And that could happen with the dragons. Or we're kind of, it's implied that they're like more all-knowing. But there's clearly some things that the leaders of the den get to know that not other dragons do. And so it's almost like, we used to go back to this, who's the good dragons, who are the bad dragons?
Yeah.
this is a rabbit hole that I am going to be simmering on probably through these books, because Rebecca's told us that we only really find out more about the dragon's side the more that Violet can get it out of Tarn and Andarna, who is a little more loose with the information. But
she's also so young.
Well, she is, but she isn't. If she could hear in her egg for 600 years, think about what she does now.
So maybe she knows more than
she would have known the
Signet.
dragons back then. It begs the question of when she became conscious enough to hear. So we know a couple years ago for Violet, but like, that doesn't just happen 300 years into being an egg, right?
I'm unwell.
It's a rabbit hole, but they're valid questions, right? So she would know about this prophecy almost firsthand. She likely could have been told by her parents, who knew she could hear in the egg, hey, we need you to stick around for this silver-haired girl with the mind of a scribe and the heart of a writer, who is going to help defeat Venom.
Oh my gosh.
You're going to have to help her come find us when the time is right. Like, you know, like that's...
Oh my gosh. Oh. What if Andarna's parents are not actually dead or gone? Can dragons live that long? Do we know this? What if they left?
I would really love to lean into that for like heartwarming purposes, but we're told that Tarn is middle-aged. But then again, like, if Rebecca really, really wanted to, she could make the seventh breed, like, be able to be way older. I don't think so. I think that would kind of take away, but she will get to know her grand nieces and nephews. Is that how that works?
She'll have family, like...
But she's technically older than all of them, but younger.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting to think about. And okay, so there's only one more question that like I had planned. Okay. Some of these were not. And that would be, if it's the case that the Isle Kingdoms has their own dragon society, government, council, whatever you want to call it, or multiple. Who knows how big they are? It sounds like they're spread out, so they could have multiple. Do our dragons know those dragons?
I think no, because I don't think that most of the dragons, especially if you're not allowed to go to the Isle Kingdoms.
That's what the Isle Kingdom humans decided. So maybe their dragons can. Who knows, right? Like I think it could be cool.
Ooh.
I think it could also be not cool. Like, like it could be not good.
Could also be a power struggle.
But then that makes me wonder if the Empyrean Council is actually the highest branch of government. I'm fascinated by the politics of the dragons, and so I hope we get to see a lot more of that.
The next one is, the trip will test every bit of her wit, luck, and strength, but she will do anything to save what she loves: her dragons, her family, her home, and him. So clearly Rebecca would know who we would think of as him, but I feel like it's vague. I don't know. It's interestingly vague. And I know that we've talked a bit previously about Rebecca saying that Violet has one goal throughout Onyx Storm, and I do think that at the micro level, short term, her goal is saving Xaden. But as this line implies, that's just one part of the puzzle piece that is winning this revolution. Finding a cure for Xaden could lead to what I think makes more sense as some sort of like antidote, like keeping more venom from populating. Remember, there are not enough ward stones to protect the whole world. By stopping more people from turning, they only have to fight the ones that already are venom. Because it's very likely that people who are already turned are not going to be after a cure like Xaden is. They wanted the power. Yeah.
So it's not like you can just like go around curing everyone, you know? So essentially, my point is that eventually could save everyone, which is what she's referencing in this: her dragons, her family, her home. My point is, I still think that saving Xaden is the goal for book 3 specifically, and just sets up that overarching goal for books 4 and 5.
Do you think that she could be being sneaky with saying him, like you said? Like, who else could him be? Her dad? Is her dad still alive? Could something happen to Brennan? What if she's being sneaky? What if it's very easy to save Xaden and they have to go on some kind of quest to save somebody else?
That's so interesting.
I don't think that's what it's going to be.
No, I love that you're theorizing. I love to see it. My first thought was, then why wouldn't she save them? Because clearly she's made it up to be Xaden needs saving, essentially. But you said that maybe he is cured pretty quickly and they find another him to save. I don't think I buy into it, but I could totally see her doing something like that with that vague him.
I don't think that's probable. It just made me think whenever you're talking about that's kind of vague saying and him.
Well, and it says her family in here.
Yeah.
I don't know. I like that thought, though. The only person I could think of would be her dad. But Rebecca has specifically said he's dead.
Okay.
So I think we can... we can... Yeah, that theory. But I like the way your mind works.
The next line says, even if it means keeping a secret so big, it could destroy everything. She's already keeping so many secrets.
Yeah, she is. So my immediate thought was the secret is about Xaden being Venom. The other secret Violet has, like one that would be so big, right, is that Andarna is a unique, unheard of by most 7th breed. But the destroy everything part makes me go back to thinking it's Xaden. Because he's supposed to represent the revolution, which is standing against Venom and those who are too cowardly to help fight against the Venom. Now he's one himself. Or it could be a secret we don't even know of yet.
I think there's so much that we don't know. So many huge bombs of a secret. I think it could be one that we don't know yet. Or Xaden.
I still lean Xaden, but like maybe on her way to save Xaden, she finds out something. Like we're going to talk about the potential of there being some sort of cure in Papa Sorrengail's research. Maybe when she finds it, she finds out a bigger secret that he had in his research. But it's like at this point, I can't keep up with all these secrets. I can, but it just spins me into rabbit holes like you see today.
Didn't expect such a short little blurb to make our minds just really spiral like this. It's just...
No, but that's what's so exciting, though. Like, I know that we're only 4 months out, I think. I feel like that's a long time in between getting a blurb in the book. But it's really getting us in the headspace of, like, we've been doing this Fourth Wing deep dive, which is focused on Iron Flame and what that changes about Fourth Wing. So it's really exciting to, like, really focus on, all right, after both those books are done, like, what is coming up? And there's just so much that we've picked up on through our deep dives that I would not, you had asked me before our deep dive, I would not have had as much to say about this blurb. No. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, we don't know all of these things. How can all of them fit? And then we have a bonus episode that's almost an hour long.
Yeah. And then also with our deep dive and us coming up with theories and seeing theories that we've mentioned that we saw from other people, it's confirming or making us let go of these theories that we have. Not so much confirming like yes or no, but it's giving us more information to add to those theories. It's exciting.
Yep. Which one has more to back it up? And if this one is true that we think we are convinced about, can this one still exist at the same time? Which is really so fun.
Yeah, or convincing us more. Theories that we weren't super sold on, that it's adding to that.
Which we're about to get to one in just a couple lines.
The next line, they need an army. They need power. They need magic.
We're going to come back to this whole need thing in just a moment. Starting with, they need an army. So that implies that whoever they're going to be asking them to become allies. Hence, they need an army, need power, need magic. That's what they're going to be essentially bargaining for. And then what does Violet have to give back? she doesn't have like a ton of political power. So I really wonder how that'll play in. But I want to talk about this whole, they need power, they need magic, because that might sound redundant, but I think that's because it's referring to political power, whereas magic is like a Signet, dragon, griffin power, all of which they need because they just kicked off a huge chess-style war. And this is where I wanted to talk about Rebecca's emphasis and her experience with history and what message she's trying to send with this series about what happens when you burn books and manipulate information. I'm really excited to see more of how this plays out in the Empyrean political stage, both with Navarre and, again, a bit about how that plays into the dragons.
I cannot wait.
As a power girly, I was like, ooh, love that. But then I was like, wait, as a political sociologist, I was like...
You're like, this cool. was written for me.
I mean, I tell myself that all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. This next line, though. It's the one I wasn't convinced. We talk about this on an unreleased episode we just filmed the other day. What? You know what? I'm going to let you actually say the line first before I jump in. Go for it, Karen.
Yeah. The line is, and they need the one thing only Violet can find, the truth.
Okay. This is the excerpt that has the phantom and chaos.
Oh, yeah.
My first thought, is this confirmation of the wildly popular theory that Violet's second signet is truth-saying? There is so much emphasis on the word need here. And we know, both from so many mentions of it in the books and how much Rebecca Yarros has emphasized it in her interviews and Q&As, specifically when asked about hints at Violet's second signet, that a signet is based off of what a writer needs most. The truth is all she was focused on in Iron Flame. Rebecca has told us that Violet's second signet was on the page throughout Iron Flame after the dreamless sleep, to the extent that she thought it was obvious to us. Her editor even suggested to her that she include a line that outwardly confirmed it, but Rebecca didn't think it was necessary because she thought we would get it immediately. That tells us that Rebecca never intended for Violet's second signet to be some sort of mystery going into Onyx Storm. She assumed we would all have figured it out already in the last book. There's been an argument that this is like too obvious for her to have put in a blurb, but I actually don't think that she would feel like confirming it in the blurb is too obvious because she already planned for us to know last book when she thought she did intentionally make it obvious.
With Xaden's POV chapter that we just got last week, and he says he doesn't know why he can't lie to her. Yeah. And then having this so close to that chapter release, it feels like it's really like driving it home there.
Yeah, I'm really not convinced still. Like, it's hard for me on that line. It actually makes me doubt it a little bit more and feel like she's just fucking with us. Because at that point in Fourth Wing, Violet didn't have that power. It doesn't start until Andarna matures. So if he can't lie to her back then, that tells me that this whole line thing doesn't actually have to do with a signet, that maybe it's something different and from something else, or maybe it was just, again, Rebecca knowing that that's a popular theory and fucking with us. But it is also so obvious that, like, you can't help but speculate on it. Which, again, yeah, it may seem obvious, but clearly, even though it seems too obvious, we're still sitting here debating.
I keep hearing a line of a Taylor Swift song. I prefer hiding in plain sight. So sometimes the best Easter eggs are the most obvious ones because they're almost too obvious for people to really think that that's happening or that's true.
That was the perfect way to put that into words. Because that's what I was trying to say is, like,
Yeah.
it leaves enough room for us to still be unsure, even though it's like the closest confirmation of any second signet we have so far. So Rebecca has also reportedly, now I can't find where she said this, but it is wildly circulating in the fandom that she has said that Violet's second signet would be underwhelming. And that would fit. Further, she said in a Sydney panel, which we'll drop a link to that in the show notes, that she doesn't like overpowered characters.
Yeah.
So when she and her editor decided to give Violet 2 dragons, because Andarna was not initially a part of her first plan for the series, she wanted Andarna to balance out Taryn's power. The only thing I can think with that is that Andarna is special, but she isn't meant to be super powerful. Like, she can still be unique and not be super powerful. Or be unique in other ways that don't lend to the same sort of power that Taryn has. That would mean the signet that she would channel to Violet wouldn't be super powerful.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it makes sense that Violet is a type of truthsayer, because she even said last book that truthsayers are more dangerous than intensics are. Another one of those things to back it up, where she can't immediately detect when someone's lying outright, but that she can tell, like, maybe when she's only getting half-truths or something. I don't know. I think it's not the same as the character that was in the interrogation chamber, who could just, like, immediately get, like, confirmation in their mind, yes or no, this is a lie, this is not.
Right.
It's something more subdued for now and could evolve to something later, but I think that she could be a more limited truthsayer for now. I mean, I don't know. I think any truth, I just think truth saying is actually underwhelming. The only thing that makes me feel like it would be like a kind of somewhat powerful thing is the line about them being more dangerous than intensics.
So we talk about this a little bit more in our chapter 27, Xaden's POV episode, more about the kind of truthsayer that Violet could be if that was her second signet, what that could look like.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
I will say, I don't particularly enjoy this as a signet. And I kind of actually hope that it's just Rebecca fucking with us. So I would actually prefer, I think, to be surprised by what it actually ends up being if it's something else, as much as I do love to theorize and speculate, because it is underwhelming.
Yeah.
Unless it grows over time to be something cooler, but
if that is it, that they say it's a more dangerous signet than intrinsic, so that almost makes me feel like it'd be too powerful if she said it was underwhelming.
Right. That's where I'm like torn on. I don't really know if I actually think that that's evidence for or against it, but
yeah.
At this point, it does feel like she's screaming it at us. Or the other popular theory circulating is that this truth could be referring to Papa Sorrengail's research, because it says specifically, quote, the one thing only Violet can find. We've talked about his research before because we're so confused about why Violet hasn't went to find it yet, and how her mom, Colonel Atos, and the scribes all looked for it in Fourth Wing and couldn't find it. I mean, her mom didn't technically go look for it, but she still said, like, she was looking at Violet to tell her where it is. And Violet seemed to be the only person who knows about this. But then again, she did ask Taryn if he knew anything about it, and he says no. But Rebecca specifically wrote that Andarna had gone silent. So I will just leave that at, maybe that means that Violet is not the only one that knows. But this could also be referring to someone with opposable thumbs. And, or that doesn't indicate that it's Papa Sorrengail's research because more than Violet does know about it. I'm not sure. But if it is, and that's the truth that she can find, maybe that means that the cure for venom and possible antidote is in his research. Like, what if Lilith was actually venom, which we've talked about before, and then he went looking
Yeah.
for it for her. But if this is the case, does that mean that the venom cure has something to do with feathertails? Since that's what Papa Sorrengail's research was on. Or I guess that the dragon eggshell theory that we have talked about on here could be a factor for that, support for that. There's also one that I don't think we've talked about yet, but I've seen that's very similar about dragon's blood. No matter what this truth is, I just want to know what's in his research. What does he know?
I do too. Yeah.
It better be like jaw-dropping for
Groundbreaking.
how much it's been, groundbreaking for how much it's been teased. It has to be, right? Yeah.
It wouldn't be so hidden and sought after if it wasn't.
Right.
Ooh, all right. The next line.
The very last one.
Oh, the very last line. But a storm is coming, and not everyone can survive its wrath. I think we should end here. I'm just kidding.
Well, we're almost there. There's definitely a reason she ended it with that. This,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
It's gonna hurt.
is further confirmation that we are going to have our hearts broken and likely lose one, if not more, of our beloved characters in this book specifically.
No thanks.
I swear that Rebecca has said as much in an interview when talking about death, that she wants it to be realistic, so there will never be a battle without a known death. But I couldn't find that interview before we recorded. So if anyone knows which interview I am thinking of, please let us know. And we've also talked about like what this storm means. We think about it for Violet. You know, her mom represents storm, but like she's turning into this storm, right? With her lightning and things like that. And then at some point in the books, I believe that Xaden says something about them in a storm. You know, Onyx, we've kind of pieced together that storm represents them. With that, the last thing that I wanted to add about that part specifically is that we are huge Swifties. And if you didn't know already, Rebecca is too. And she used a song called Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince by Taylor Swift as inspiration for both Fourth Wing and Iron Flame. Now, she hasn't dropped the Onyx Storm playlist yet, but this shows me that it will be on it too because of the lyric. Now, we're talking in reference to, but a storm is coming, right? The lyric is, quote, and now the storm is coming, but it's you and me. That's my whole world. The moral of this song is about political strife, but that it's okay. You will get through it with your person, which I think is a good indication that the storm that is this book will be a rough ride, but at the end of the day, it's Xaden and Violet. And that is the note that we will positively end on with our Onyx Storm blurb initial thoughts.
Oh my goodness. And that one is the one that I think is really gonna keep me up at night too.
But I guess in a positive way now, right? Because that last line, I don't even like want to think about everyone not surviving its wrath. Like,
yeah.
But the she knows her lyrics. Okay.
Yeah.
That song specifically is like her number one inspo song. She has said as much. So it's a positive note that I think that we should force ourselves to take because it will probably be rare that we get many of those as we ramp up for this book, as she's trying to mentally prepare us.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of faith in her to not destroy me.
You shouldn't. She has said as much. You should not trust her.
I'm not going to say what I actually think. I want us to end on the positive.
I know I have to
Or
know.
should I just say? I'm worried that it's going to end with everybody dead.
I am not. Because I can't go there. No. But Rebecca's also said she is a romance writer. And she loves happily ever afters. Do with that what you will. Karen, you will
two
not
different-
drag us down into this negativity. I refuse.
Not negative. I'm trying to be, as somebody who's read several not happily ever after books, that's just what I'm
can't
worried.
handle it.
We
No,
come
I
from
can't
our
handle it.
experience.
I can't handle it. No.
I know.
I even tried to end us all off on a good note, and then
You told me to say what I was thinking.
see where that gets me.
Well, I'm sorry to everybody for that. This wraps up our Onyx Storm Blurb Initial Thoughts bonus episode. Thank you for joining in on our fangirling, and don't forget to join us for our next episode where we will continue our deep dive on Fourth Wing through the lens of Iron Flame.
Yes, we are more than halfway through it at this point, covering all things theories, Easter eggs, foreshadowing, and signets, keeping up to date on everything Empyrean as we go. You can check us out on YouTube and all major podcast platforms. There are hours worth to binge.
We will be ramping up for a mini season in December and January, fully focused on all things Empyrean to prepare for and count down to Onyx Storm.
If you aren't already, go give us a follow over on TikTok and Instagram. We are currently doing a giveaway for the new paperback Fourth Wing edition with the new Xaden POV Chapter 27. And please share with all of your Fourth Wing friends so that they can join in on all this excitement.
As always, we encourage you to email us all of your thoughts, theories, and suggestions. Drop them below if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, or join us over on our Discord server.
Until next week, dearest fantasy readers, prepare for more fangirling, theories, and Easter eggs as we continue our journey through the Empyrean series.
I promise to be more positive next time.